Hi everyone, I'm Ekta and we are Read a Kitab. Thank you for joining us today. And I'm extremely excited to be having an award winning poet with me. And we're going to have some interesting conversation with her. So I'm going to go live with Rochelle Potkar in a very short span of time. So I'll just wait for her. In the meanwhile, stay tuned. We are going to have some very interesting conversation. And this is our first discussion with a poet. So I'm looking forward to this. I'm very excited. Okay, so let me just have her. I think she's just joined us. I'll just add her. So I'm going to have very interesting conversation with her today, and I look forward to having this talk with her. And there's a dog in the house, so you will have to bear with that. Hi, Rochelle. How are you?
Hi, Ekta. So lovely to see you. I'm good. How are you?
Same here. Hi, Rochelle. It is so lovely to see you as well. And there is a pet in the house, so maybe there would be, the dog would come in between. So I thought that, I have to tell you this thing beforehand.
Okay.
And I have with me Neeraj. So hi, Neeraj.
Hi, Neeraj.
Hi, Rochelle. Hi, Ekta. I apologize. Actually, there is a power cut at my place, and therefore I'm managing things, and I might not be that audible to you. Also, I apologize for
Okay.
that.
Okay. But we can hear you. Yeah,
And I
we can
feel
hear you.
I feel that today whatever could happen happened. Everything happened. So we got a power cut. We were stuck somewhere. So I was like, oh my god, why everything is happening together. But I'm so happy that we are here today. So thank you everyone for joining us, and those who will join us and watch this video later, which I know a lot of people would
I'll
do.
just I'll
So
just put the light
we
on. I
have
think
with
I
us
think I
today
can put on some
Rochelle
more light.
Potkar.
I'll just put, yeah.
Sure, sure. We have today Rochelle Potkar, who is a brilliant author, and I mean, I call her poet. And if you read this book of hers, the recent one, Coins and Rivers, you're going to be blown away. And we are going to have a conversation on this because I thoroughly enjoyed reading this,
Thank
and
you.
so loved
Thanks.
it. Rochelle, what a fabulous book this is. And I was like, I wanted to read it at a slow pace, which I also told you, and I wanted to read one poem a day. And then there are very strange things that happened with me while I was reading this book, which I'm going to talk to you. So just to give a background to all the readers, we have Rochelle with us today, and we are going to talk with her about her book, Coins and Rivers. And Rochelle is also for her work. She's also been shortlisted for the Rabindranath Tagore Award, and she's also an alumna of Iowa University, and she's doing a lot of writing courses. She's also been consecutively invited for the fourth year for the IWP Creative Writing Program. And there is so much that we can talk about Rochelle, but I'm not going to take more time. I think Rochelle is going to talk more than me today. So, Rochelle, just to kickstart and just to set the things right, I saw, while I was reading all the poems, I was just thinking that, the hallmark of your poetry, every poem that I read had so much of storytelling involved in it. And I was like literally blown away. I was just thinking that, how the entire structure of the story is flown, in every poem that you wrote. And there you have covers. There's so much that this book really talks about. Talk more about it, but I just wanted to understand how storytelling blend came into while you were writing this poetry.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ekta, for having me. You don't know how excited I am to talk to you and to talk to Neeraj because I've been waiting for this day because you've been updating me on all the poems you were reading and savoring, and I'm like, okay, now when will she tell me her favorite poem? Because I believe that each poem has that ability that a different reader interacts and interprets it differently. So a poem is never the same, okay? And that's the beauty of a poem, that each piece of work is kaleidoscopic, depends on who completes that semicircle of creation. So when you speak about this, first of all, thank you so much for all the generous praise. I think a lot of the poems here, not all of them, a lot of them have stories because I have been a haibuneer writing haibun. which is lyrical prose, Japanese short poetry forms, and writing a lot of short stories. So I think somewhere in our heads we are all merged, right? I mean, we don't have shelves like libraries or book. Yeah, we are all
Absolutely.
merged. So you
Absolutely.
don't know when the storyteller comes alive, and when the haibunia takes over, and when the haiku poet takes over, when the screenwriter takes over. So it's all an amalgam, this creation, and it just happens because poetry anyway happens in one exhalation. You don't outline a poem and write it stanza by stanza, day after day. You write it in one exhalation. You may later, but we always write it in one go.
That is a wonderful thought, because all the people who aspire to write poetry, or those who are writing poetry, there are a lot of things that happen when you're writing a poetry. There's so much that is going on in your head, and then you put down that into words, and I think that's a very, very difficult process. So, and also, I think writing poetry is as difficult as also understanding poetry. That is also, that also involves a higher
Yes,
level of understanding.
absolutely. Absolutely, because see, a
So,
poem can be abstract, and it can also, kind of collapse an entire galaxy on a page. And I call it the
absolutely.
telegrams from the universe. Okay, so it's the Morse code of the universe.
Wow.
Yeah.
And everything, Rochelle, that I read in the poem, all the poems that I read, there is so much of universe elements
Mhm,
involved in
mhm.
it. There are, we talk about stars, we talk about moon, we talk about all the earthy things as well. So there is a whole journey that you have taken from your poems, starting from okay, someone is saying the host's video is spinning. Is that happening? Can you feel that?
Uh,
Is anyone feeling that? Please message me if that's happening.
that,
Okay, Sonali, I saw your comment. You're saying the host's video is spinning. If that is the case, and anyone else of you is also feeling the same, could you please message us? Yeah. Okay. Hi. I think Neeraj's power is gone. So okay. Yes. Okay. Rochelle, I'll try again.
yeah, should we come? Okay, the voice is breaking as well. Okay, so yeah, should we
Is
come
it
back
is it fine
again?
now?
Like,
Is it fine now? Is it
it
fine
is
now?
not spinning, but there is some break in the voice. Okay, yeah. So it at least I can
Okay.
hear it. Okay, now I can hear your voice. Yeah.
Okay. 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 Real life struggles.
Yeah.
But yes. So Rochelle, I mean, coming back to the point when you were talking
Mhm.
about editing, I think um, it is very important that when a poet writes some things, and there is always a love-hate relationship that a poet must be having with the editor, like the authors almost every time have it.
Yeah.
So how is your relationship, and how do you come across it? Because if they ask you to
Yeah.
prune a word, I mean, that completely takes away what the poetry means. So
That's
I was
no,
very
that's
interested in
such a
knowing
that's
this
such a
from
witty
you.
question, Ekta. Only you could ask that. No, so actually the thing is, first, I am an editor myself, so I have edited a lot of journals and literary magazines, and also I came from content writing when I was working in the corporate life. So I love language hygiene and cleaning up, commas and full stops and keeping the text as clean. So I really like editing. So, working with my editor, Sonali Jindal in Hachette, India, was very wonderful because she was a stickler, not just for the little semicolons and full stops. And she's not a poetry
Mm-hmm.
editor per se, but she could engage with every poem of mine. See, that's the beauty which I
Wow.
felt was that a poem can even a not poetry
Absolutely.
editor engage with it so deeply. And she really went after the history. Sometimes I took poetic license, and she was like, wait, this is not that year, and this is this, and from where did you get this? And I'm like, no, I read it there. And she's like, find the citation. And I'm like, okay. So I had to do all that because poetic license ke andar bhi, how much can you hide? Your histories can't hide under poetic license. Yeah, so all my history
Absolutely.
had to be double checked. And especially the investigation report, that poem on with Dr. Sapatnekar and the RDX found and all that was from. I had to tell her, okay, it's from Black Friday, okay, it's from Hussein Zairi's Black Friday, Dr. Sapatnekar. She was like, where's Dr. Sapatnekar? I'm like, he's here. So so all that was very well checked. But I think I'm open to editing because not only I'm an editor, but I believe that editing makes your piece better. not only in the internal editing process, ki when you exhale a poem, you come back to it in time intervals and you edit, you chisel out the poem sharper. You do away with the words that are extra. I also believe that time is a very good editor. Time in itself, you keep something
True.
away,
So
and then it's
true.
beautiful. And talking about your dog, I also have the dog of all stories, which is another poem. Yeah, but
Yes.
yeah, but um yeah, so editing, so I enjoy the editing process also, because as a new screenwriter, I had to open up and mentally prepare for collaborations and allowing many perspectives in the room. So because you can't have your story like a novelist or a poet, like it's very guarded. But when you're a screenwriter, you once you write your first draft, you have to open it out. So I think that collaborative expansion came from there. But Sonali was very sweet. There was hardly much that she kind of did. It was really very untouched, and I don't mind if you tell me that shift this colon or shift this line break, and you give me a valid reason. I don't mind shifting it if I see that. Yeah, I'm not one of those.
That's so
I'm not
amazing.
one of
That's so
those who will fight for that semicolon all the whole day, because I can write many
no.
more
So yeah, that's
semicolons.
so amazing. Absolutely. And the style in which the poetry is written, and all the poems that are written in the book is so exemplary, because
Thank
when
you.
you move from one
Yeah,
poem to other and you read,
yeah,
in
yeah.
between, it is absolutely a very different experience, Rochelle. I must tell you, and I had such a heartwarming
So
experience
glad.
with some poetries, wherein some of them were, they came like
Mm,
a
mm,
shock, and
mm.
some were like
Right,
they broke my heart, and some felt so
right.
dystopian, so true. And there are different colors, there are different flavors to the
Mm,
story, to the poetry. There are different there's a different storyline that is
right.
going around. So it was such an enriching experience reading this this book. So all the people who've joined us now and who are going to see this video later, you have to buy this book, Coins in
Let me do
Reverse,
that.
and the link is in the bio. So you can get your copy from the link in the bio, and you can please buy this book. You got to read these amazing poetries, because I think they are like absolutely fantastic. And Rochelle, before I go to the next question, I just got a message from Neeraj, and he's saying he's good to join. So I'll just try adding
Sure,
him.
sure.
Absolutely clueless why the power
Mm,
went today. So
mm,
and
mm.
with no
Yeah,
backup in the building, I'll just add
absolutely.
him, and then we'll
Yes,
continue.
yes.
So I'll just try to add him. Okay. In the meanwhile, I've just sent him an invite. In the meanwhile, he
Hmm.
joins. There is another very interesting thing. Okay, Neeraj
Hi,
is here.
Neeraj.
Hi,
Hi.
Yeah,
Neeraj.
yeah.
Yeah, I have been,
So
pinging
yeah,
since a very long time, but I was listening to the conversation. So please go ahead.
Okay.
so and I was also wondering that why this thing happened today, that we all are kind of shining like stars with no lights and all of that. But yeah, so
Yeah.
Rochelle, a very very interesting fact that I saw in the book was there were there's a juxtaposition of very complex problems or very complex
Hmm, hmm,
issues that your
hmm,
poetry talks about, and very not very easy to understand, like I told earlier. And to the contrary, there are very startling graphs, which are very simple, but they come on your face and they're like, oh, I never saw this coming while I was reading the poem. So, and it is so brilliant an effort, because on one hand, when you're reading the poem, you were like, okay, I get it, but I don't get it like that. And then you see the graph and you're like, oh my God, I never, so everything comes kind of falls flat on your face. Oh my God, I never saw this
right.
coming. How did you decide to go ahead with that kind of process? It is such amazing process. I really loved and enjoyed reading it
Thank
that way.
you, thank you. But I wish I could consciously pinpoint the process. What I have a feeling is that every poet has their voice, and as you keep developing your voice and worldview and styles, I keep experimenting with styles, but not consciously. I think the most conscious poems in this collection were Bedding Day and Harry Mendonça and the Litter of Application to a School Principal. I think that was very conscious, because
Yeah.
the other ones were not, like when I'm talking about environment or I'm talking about female sensuality, sexuality, desire. Which I always, when I perform 10 things I want to do to you, I always say the trigger warning is sexual desire, because we have trigger warnings of sexual violence. So, on the other spectrum,
Absolutely.
to have non-judgmental expression of sexual desire is also equally important as a petition to society. But I think those poems came naturally, because you are we are, like every poet will know that you're attacked by a poem. Okay, I feel that a poem is like a wild animal in the wilderness. You pick up its scent, sometimes you're running after it, sometimes it's running after you, and you exhale it. So many of the poems came like that. But there were some poems wherein I wondered, okay, where's the hasya rasa? Because by then I had also become a screenwriter. So when I was looking at somber poems of, let's say, war and violence, or I was looking at, City 101 and what is nuclear, or how animals are recruited as voiceless, soldiers of foot
Yes.
soldiers of war. Or I was looking at violence against women, or anything. Or I was, but then there was also this: where is the hasya rasa? Because I have become a screenwriter, so I didn't want every poem to be somber. I wanted to change styles. I also feel that sometimes, instead of anger, if you express it with black comedy, which I haven't done as much in this book, but like, say, Bedding Day is a perfect example. Sometimes when you just have black comedy, it hits home much better than what you would do with rage. So even from your palette, you pick and choose. But I'll tell you something: this is not outlined, not pre-decided. You can't decide a poem. When it attacks you, you need to be completely ready with what you're going to do to it, and you have only 1 nanosecond to decide, and that's it. The poem's out there.
So on that note, actually, I was kind of wondering. So most of the questions you have already answered. I was going to
Mm-hmm.
ask you about the process, and
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of poets, it's also the emotions that are recollected in tranquility. But you are saying that it's a very spontaneous process, and you also spoke about editing, and you are also talking about the navrasa, one of the navrasas, which is hasya rasa. I kind of had like two questions. One is basically a request: if you could
Mm-hmm.
actually read something out loud
Mm-hmm.
to us, it would be such
Mm-hmm.
a privilege and pleasure. And the
Yes.
second thing is, when does actually the craft begin? Because it's such a question which probably I don't know as a poet how to ask and how to answer
Mm-hmm.
also, because but the moment you put pen to paper, you start that crafting thing,
Yeah.
right? Because the
Yeah.
original thought, it's all in my head.
Right.
And the poem is
Right.
is in my head,
Yeah.
and a lot of poets also do say, very famously, Shanta Sherkeji also said this,
Mm-hmm.
that the moment you put pen to paper, your craft begins. So I
Yeah.
just wanted to know
Yes.
what are your thoughts on this process?
See, so it's a very interesting and very intricate question, Neeraj. So I feel that craft is something that develops. So the art is something we have within us, all of us. In fact, I noticed that Indians are the biggest dramebaz. They have 100 stories, they have 100 jokes, they have 100 ye huana, wo huana. They know everything. They have all the art in them. Now it's the craft. I think the craft is something that I see across the board, because I have been a practitioner for many years, but I've also been a teacher in colleges in India, even internationally. So what I notice is craft is at different stages of anyone, and it is up to each poet or writer to decide how much they want to invest in craft, because craft has structure in it, craft has rhythm in it. If you're talking of poetry, craft has theme in it, craft has so many things, right? Lyricisms, and it has even if you're a page poet, it's different from being a stage poet, because a page has space. Okay, so the white space, and the white space means something. It's like the pause of the caesure in music, and it's a silence in the morning. And a stage poet requires a different kind of like intonation and stage presence, and the poem blooms out of your body when you are performing it. But when you're reading it, it's an intimate breath experience. You are inhaling the
Wow.
poem. See, because I said we exhale the poem on the page, when you're reading it silently, you are inhaling the poem.
Nearly there.
So this is
Wow.
different from listening to the poem as a listener in spoken word, where you click like this. Here you're only saying wah 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 in your mind, you are inhaling it deeper. So there is a different way of how a poem comes from ether. That's why universe is so essential, and it comes into you and comes out, and then it goes into the reader. So it's all the collective unconscious, right? We are breathing in the same air and ether, and we're breathing and breathing ideas in and out. So for me, craft is something that you develop on the side. You don't consciously develop it. You read a lot. I read a lot for my craft to develop. See, I can only speak about me, but reading in itself is very essential. When you read a lot and you read widely, good, rich poetry, what happens, and you find that on Poetry Foundation, you find that on rattle.com, on all these international sites which also feature Indian poetry, even read poetry in translation. But what happens is, when you have good diet of reading, you know how this poet expressed love, how that poet spoke of sorrow, how this poet spoke of grief or war or violence, and everyone will have a different sur, a different rasa. And when you are writing, all that comes in. So I think craft is something which is very subconscious. And you were quoting someone who said that. That's right. Craft just happens because it's a practice, and that's why the riyaz is very important.
Wow, you said it, and thank you so much for saying it because being a classical dancer myself, Riyaz is something because that's exactly why we do Riyaz, because we want to hone our craft more and more. Because, like you said, art is already there, and therefore we
Yes.
want to hone our skills even further.
Yes, and I feel craft. I feel art and heart is there. It's the craft that can go the longest mile, because you can never stop learning. I think that not just for a poet, but for anybody, the learning curve is exponential. You cannot
Absolutely.
stop learning craft.
Right. So here is, before Ekta asks you the question, here is, I was wondering, because you mentioned translation as well.
Mhm.
Now, when we read a lot of Indian poetry, there is a kind of an ethos that we share across the subcontinent, and there is this innate musicality that we have in our poems, right? So, like in Kathak also, we have this kavita thing we have, right, where you say Krishna Sakha mil gaye gwalin. So there is an innate
Right.
musicality. I was kind of wondering, like, if given an opportunity, would you like to translate your own poems into Indian languages? I'm sure you must already be doing it. And what about the innate musicality?
Yeah. So see, some of my poems have been translated into different world languages, and also Marathi, Hindi, and all. But I would never, like, I would always wish I could never translate it because I'm not that fluent. But yes, and you will be surprised, Neeraj, that our Indian languages are so richer than English, that
Absolutely.
it's like a joy to get because the fun part about being an Indian English poet is that you write in Hindi. Okay, I write in Hindi in English.
Wow.
So
I
you get
completely
it,
get
right? I mean,
you.
there's a different dialect of Indian English. Okay, so yeah, and so because I remember once
Because
who
there
told me
was,
this. Yeah, yeah.
yes.
No, tell me. Yeah,
Yeah, no, no, please go ahead. Because because while reading some of the poems, I could,
yeah,
being a dancer, I could, that rhythm was going on continuous, that
yes,
metronome was
yes,
going on. I was
yes.
like, oh, I get this.
Yeah, so that is definitely the rhythm of poetry, the
Absolutely.
rhythm of a hyponia, but also because we I think in English, I think in Hindi, I think in Konkani, I think in Marathi. I don't know. I think in many languages that I like, and that is the beauty, that we are so blessed with so many languages, that when we write our English, that Indian English, that Indian is such a big word. Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes I remember, I do
Wow,
remember once I was
Rochelle.
reading Biscuity Love, which is one of my signature poems in Sahitya Academy. And the great Hindi poet Anamika, who lives in Delhi, said, "This is not an English poem, it's a Hindi poem."
Wow.
And I was like, okay,
Wonderful.
yes. And even the other poem, Knotted Inside Me, which is about my small town, experience of coming to the city. And she says, this is a Hindi poem because I understood everything about it.
Lovely.
Yeah, yeah.
That's so amazing, Rochelle. And you gave so many pearls of wisdom, I'll say that, and there were so many flashes of brilliance when you were talking. And I was just kind of thinking that we could go on and, talk to you all day and listen to what you were
Absolutely.
saying,
But
about
because
reading and
see,
how
I'm
important
also
it
not just
is.
a writer or a practitioner, but a teacher. So it's very difficult for me not to get in workshop mode. I have to keep saying, stop, 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 edit, edit. Yeah.
Okay, so a lot of people are kind of waving you and are
Yes.
saying big fan. So Kunal said hi to you and
Thank
said big
you.
fan. There is somebody messaged me, Gulal. He said, "Can I ask a question?" Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you, Kunal.
Post your
And yes,
question. We'll
Gulal,
take your
yes.
question. Okay, very
Mhm.
interesting, Rochelle. I also feel that each poet has different styles for 3, 4 different kinds of poems, and the same person writes. Somehow the craft develops unconsciously alongside. Yeah, brilliant. So Shrutani, thank you. We may not deliberately set out to develop it. Great. Yeah. So a lot of messages. So please keep on posting your questions if you have any. We would love to ask Rochelle about them and hear more from her. But I'll take a pause and I'll give it to her. That she'll read out one poem for us. That would be such a great thing to
Yeah.
do. So yeah, off to you,
Yeah. So
Rochelle.
I'll read. See, I'll read keyholes, but I want to mention that keyholes and Harry Mendonça follow the same structure of the fact that there is a gossiper, okay, who is in this part of the poem and is italicized, and here it's the landlord, okay, or it's the society. But in Harry Mendonça, it's the gossipers who are talking at his funeral. So while the somber funeral is going on, where there's a catalog of all his brands that Harry Mendonça has used till the day he died, on the other hand, they're talking about his sex life. So because I think I'm a storyteller, I also think I'm an official gossiper as well. So I never forget that there's a gossiper archetype that should come in some poems, and they come. But this one is more serious, called Keyholes. And Ekta, you said this is one of your favorite poems, so I want to read a bit of it, right? Yes, thank you, Dheeraj. But a bit of it, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you.
not the whole one, just one stanza. Okay, Keyholes. We hide our wet lace behind a trellis of plants, our voices honeyed from jaded soap operas. Our requiems are parties inside our heads, earphone to earphone. Tolerance in the diorama of this rented place. No door of solace or shame kept open. They will keep boyfriends, and they will come with trouble, and they will eat meat, and but sometimes we translate into vixens, late night party girls with eye masks, returning on the stairs. Shh! The landlord is insomniac to stilettos and side slits of little black dresses, books, menstrual cups, and spandex. Who will take responsibility for them? And emerald nights pass into agate mornings, the sapphire of our headscarves and prayer mats, from insular to secular near our 2 by 2 boxes. We curl each night against thoughts of saffron eyes, bloodshot. If the nights fall over our skin, our bodies become bottles of wine with a crack against it, dripping, dripping. They will get raped, and wooden cages with wooden birds flapping to horizons, we scrape air like parchment, feeling secrets from walls of adopted jail houses. They will grow wings, and serpentine winds belching histories of women who left when they heard the bricks squeaking. Shh! And not again. And please behave yourselves. But we play safe. But we play safe in dog-chewed chapels, our cycle tires gripping the road's ruggedness, as alleys sugarlit the broken sky of old whispering neighbors. All this, all this for only one proper peg to place the key of our russet city freedoms. They will wear short skirts and keyholes.
Wow.
Thank
Wow.
you, thank you, thank
Fantastic.
you.
So loved it, Rochelle. And I must tell you that,
Mhm.
as brilliant the poem is, you read it, equally
Thank
brilliantly.
you.
So
You,
Yeah.
thoroughly
I,
enjoyed
in
it.
if I
some
can
way,
observe here,
thank you
the
so much. In fact, I'm somewhere between a cocktail between a page and a stage poet. I've realized that. I mean, many of my poet friends made me realize that.
and it sounded very different to me because the italics, the thing that you were reading,
Mhm.
I read it as like an act of rebellion, like so, and so I read
Mm.
it like this,
Yeah,
but now
yeah.
the way you have read it, it has changed the meaning of the entire poem, so it's
That's so
brilliant.
interesting.
So
That's
many
so
things we take
interesting.
away from the
Yes,
poem.
yes. And I think sometimes when the poet herself or himself reads, then it's a different poem. If you were to read it aloud, you would bring your rhythm into it. So even your voice into it. So now you would read the and differently, but that I'm very curious about that as well, because my and comes from the fact that the gossip never ends. Yeah, so it's always or.
And
Huh.
and Rochelle, I read exactly the same way that Neeraj is saying, and I was
Mhm.
like, but they will grow wings, and like it was a different kind of
Right,
It
and
was a
when I read it. So
defiance. It was a
right.
kind of a defiance, an act of like
yeah,
Okay,
a blend of
okay.
sass also in the like they'll wear shortcuts
Hmm.
and like what
That's
else are you going to
interesting.
have against
Oh,
them?
oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. See the intonation of just and. And it's also silly because see, grammatically it's so wrong to put and at the end. It's just hanging there, right? But it's just,
Yeah, it's just hanging
it's
there,
yeah,
right?
it's in tune with the gossiper. The gossipers always have lots to talk about. Huh.
So here is a
yeah.
confession. I was
So
talking to Ethan. I'm sorry. I think I'm speaking over everyone.
Please do,
So
please
I
do.
was
Yeah.
really skeptical about interviewing a poet because I know Ekta also writes poetry, but I've never discussed poetry as such because of the exact same things. But this is a conversation I'm absolutely loving. So thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thank you. In fact, that tells me more that Neeraj, we need to be discussing poetry because I don't think we need to poetry at an inaccessible, levels. I want poetry to be that bridge that new people who don't read poetry. I mean, you all at least write poetry also, but there are new people who don't know about poetry as a form. They think it's not for us. It's not for us. Like I thought when I initially came to literature that I'm not a poet. I'm a short fictionist. So we all think it's not for us, but actually poetry is for all of us. It will fill you up like water, not like food, like water.
Some amazing things that are going, we all are going to hear, and I'm definitely going to make some small
I'm
reels out of it and
so
going to
glad.
share
Yes,
with everybody
please
because
do.
I want everybody to listen to what you're saying. It is so it's like music to eyes, ears, and it's such brilliant. Thing that we are doing today. And one more thing I wanted to ask you, Rochelle, was while I was reading the poetry and I was reading it,
Mhm.
in a go. And then since the book is divided into many chapters and many themes are there, and then I thought, okay, let me just randomly start picking
Mhm.
and reading
Mhm.
poetry. The experience was absolutely different. So, while I was reading it together and then I read them separately, and even I read the same poems which I've read, in a go, and then I picked them up and read separately. It was absolutely a different experience. So, how did you create that entire
Yeah,
enigma,
see,
around the
that's so
book?
interesting that you say that, because I have known this for a fact that, only poetry you can do this, that you arrange it in a certain way. Like, let's say the poet or the editor, we decide, and I had already sent this manuscript in exactly this way. It opens with bread, it closes with bedrock. It's very important because bread for me was like the Eucharistic. It was like the start of civilization. If you notice, every civilization has bread, roti, some form of brun, all that. And being a Goan and being nicknamed Pauwali as our community slang, I thought nothing could be better than bread because it starts civilization. And even the coins are connected to civilization as two facets of history. The record of the hunted, the record of the hunter. The rivers spark civilization. Wherever the rivers are, civilizations begins. Wherever they are not, civilization ends. So everything was about civilization. So bread, I started with bread. It ended with bedrock because finally you go through the grist of samsara. So from bread in the morning light and the innocence of that morning, you go through the grist of maybe your own sexuality, sensuality, womanhood, motherhood, woman in the cityhood, till you become the citizen in the world, till you become an atom in the galaxy, and then you move beyond and you are just watching, watching existence as if you're just an atom, and then you reach bedrock because you reach the philosophy of detachment, right? So from this complete attachment into, you could almost think that it's a lifetime, this book is, because it starts with the morning and it ends with another morning post life, because I'm saying shipbuilding, is almost like the karma apna, like Bhagavad Gita's philosophy of how much should we attach ourselves to the fruit. We all work hard and we are like, okay, now where's the outcome? We are taught about outcome and ROIs. Where is it? It's not there. You just did this and your journey is your destination. So I placed it that way, and in the middle came all the political poems, the social poems, family poems. I noticed that all my books are like that, even 4 Degrees of Separation was exactly like that in pattern. But now I know that this is the way I footprint life. Even Paper Asylum had the same way of going from, that's why I call it the navel gazing to stargazing. But when the reader reads, surprisingly, you can do anything with a poem, because unlike a novel or a film, which you need to watch from beginning to end, in a poetry book, you don't have to do that. You can just open any page. You can start from bedrock and end with bread. You can do anything with it. And so sometimes I'm surprised that the deck just shifts, like the 52 cards. So I'm surprised that again this book becomes something else then, no? Every book of poetry becomes something else then, because it's kaleidoscopic again, not just by interpretation, but by order of reading. So
That is so fascinating, and I think I'm going to try doing that, Rochelle. And I was just wondering, when you were talking about it, never saw it that way. So now I'm definitely going to do that. I think that will bring altogether a different, meaning to
yeah,
the
yeah.
poem. So very
Just
excited
wondering,
about
because
it.
this became a journey, like, and I didn't know that consciously, because I wrote these poems not, they were not written. Acha, pehle I'll write personal poems, then I'll write, social poems, then world. It's like this is the way the world comes to you. It comes to you in turbulence. It comes to you with epiphanies. It comes to you with great grief, sometimes sorrow, sometimes depression. Sometimes it comes with great joy, euphoric. Yeah, sometimes the epiphanies are mind blowing. Sometimes it's a dark day. Just like we have all kinds in our lives, the world has those days. Some places are burning and they're never ending, and some places are in misery. Some places are nirvanic. So all that comes into you, then you write that. And then you don't know. Like for me, when the 100th poem was done, I was like, some alarm was ringing in my head. Ki, oh, a publisher had once told me that when you have 100 odd poems, you should make a book of it. So I was like, okay, you know what? I think this is the 100th poem. I should now stop here. Otherwise, I've written more poems, but then this is the bus it's going in. Then you stop and you're like, you want to section. Then when you're sectioning, you realize you're looking at your footprints in retrospect. You're looking at what you did, and then you're like, okay, this is how I went about it.
Wonderful. I mean, and you rightly pointed out that it's very important that we have more and more conversation regarding poetry. So I had kind of a question regarding that as well. I was kind of wondering. So being a classical dancer, we have this conversation like what is the future of classical dancer, Kathak in general, and all of these things. On the similar lines, what do you think is the future of like verse writing in India in particular, and in world poetry in general? Because conversations, yes, are very important, but what do you envision is in store for poetry
Yeah.
as we
So
go down the
so
line?
first and foremost, like I'll answer this in two ways. Like I'll bookend it by the very simple Rasta question, which says, "Ki, can I make this a career?" You'll always have one student asking this. Can this be my career? And you're like, no, it's not going to pay the rent, and it's not going to pay our school fees, and you can't make it a career.
I can so
And the
relate
business,
to this right now.
yeah. So you have the students asking. I had plenty of them asking me also, and then you have more sober business people of the world asking you, anything happen with the do you have any ROI on poetry? And then Neeraj, after many years, I realized that poetry is like prayer. It's like a dream, okay? And we don't sell
Wow.
our prayers, we don't sell our dreams. And also to think of the fact that in a capitalistic world that we live in, we look at ROI of what comes to us, because naturally we have every other expenditure which is in this currency of money. But poetry pays you in a different currency. So, what would we do about that? The currency exchange doesn't happen that way. Poetry has already given you solace, it has already given you peace, it has already given you solitude, it has already given you grace, it has given you an abstract ideas or a clutch of ideas that you would have never thought yesterday, but it's gifted to you today. And money can't buy all those things. In the pandemic, when everyone was so uncertain about all the deaths around them, what's going to happen, are we going to live like rats, and is this the apocalypse, end of the world, many turned to poetry, because somehow they couldn't sustain their attention in novels, or even Netflix and other streaming stations. They did that, we did that, but poetry was where you sought solace, because it was a small piece, but it was so large that it was your rock in the ocean. So I feel the currencies of poetry are so different that it can't, the fact that poetry even exists in a capitalistic world is surprising to me. It should have been in paradise. So, all the art forms are supposed to be in paradise because they're giving you something so deep that a capitalistic world can't give you. Okay, but we want to evaluate it based on capitalistic parameters of पैसे दिया क्या, पैसे नहीं दिया, लेकिन मुझे चैन की नींद दी, मुझे थोड़ा सेंस दिया, मुझे थोड़ा ग्रेस दिया. Yeah, so
Wow.
so the currencies are different. So yes, coming to the reality or the realistic part, Neeraj, I see poetry is revered in internationally, but it still doesn't have. It's not an independent lucrative career unless you're a best-selling poet and you're selling lots of and getting a lot of royalties. Generally, poetry is not that, but I think many of the art forms like theater might not be that. So many independent filmmaking cannot sustain. So there are many cousins of these art forms that are not. So I feel that but I do see a very robust future for Indian English poetry only because I feel that we as a country have such a rich voice. And I'm talking of Indian English because I read most of it. I'm sure that there are as rich poets in other languages, but I'm talking of Indian English. I'm seeing the range and the richness of the poetry. So that's not the problem. I think we need to come together as a real collective that works. Like, I mean to say that you enter a room and, or you say that I'm going for this book launch. I'm coming to this book launch and you don't need to do anything more. There should be 100 or 200 people in the audience. If you come out with a book, you have to just say this book is out and 5,000, 10,000, 1 lakh copies should just sell. We can reach that place. But to reach that place, all will have to come together. And right now we are very nascent. We are still one versus the other kind of, we are still at that zone. Not just poetry, I think many art forms are one versus the other. Until you don't come as us really together, we can't make a very big difference. You'll make small differences, then each one will succeed a little, fail a little. But if you come together, we have to get rid of one of the most important things, which is the heavy weight of ego. Ego is very heavy,
Oh my
okay?
God. You're saying it all, Rochelle,
Yeah.
today.
No.
In
I
fact,
thought a lot about this because I want to in the future do something about poetry collective, like getting all the Indian English poets together to make a big difference to everybody. But it's like a
and,
crazy thing, and I need a lot of money, so I'll have to raise a lot of money first. Okay.
yeah, so I mean, use the capitalistic system to beat the capitalistic system, right? That's
Absolutely,
a
the
very good.
businesses will have to finance the arts. The businesses of the world will finance the arts. Yeah.
Right, and when I was talking about the ethos also, like you are writing poetry and Ekta is into the corporate world, but also she's a wonderful poet in her own right, and I am a Kathak dancer. But we are all thinking about the same thing, and I did start a hashtag called as uh, collaboration over competition. And that resonated
Wow.
so much with so many people in the community that we have never thought about it. Why is it always like me versus you, I versus the other
Yes.
person, like
Yes.
and this resonates with me so much.
Right. No, because I feel that it's not a critique that I have. It's just an observation that I think when you're a nascent art form, you always start like that because tribes in any civilization, tribes always started like that. They always looked after their little tribe and they always thought, nahi, there's a scarcity of things and wo tribe ko mil jayega and there's a tribal war. But once you evolve, you realize that we are all one. If we come together, we are going to make such substantial difference that as I said, like I mean, I'm not talking just as a dream. I have spoken to poets in Singapore who built this over time that they would enter a room and it's house full. You have a lot of people buying your books by just saying that this book is out. You don't have to do that legwork, but somebody had to do it someday, right? So groundwork has to be done. But this happens in evolution. I think all Indian English poets are also evolving. You will meet a lot of people who are not as competitive as they are collaborative. So we are shifting. I think in another 5 to 10 years, we would have become completely collaborative. It's a matter of evolution. So this happens everywhere. Yeah. And I hope that I'm going to, play one tiny little part in trying to really do something because I really like, just
So I think Rochelle, we lost your voice.
Can't hear you properly. Yes. And I think I'll also quickly move my like because the power is back, so I'll also quickly adjust if that's okay.
I think
All
Neeraj, you're
right.
doing fine.
Okay.
Rochelle, can you hear us?
Not really.
We can, but it is
Yeah.
very meek.
It's as if you're speaking from far off.
Yeah, is it any better now? Okay.
Much better
Yes,
now.
yes,
Much
Yeah, because
better.
perfect.
these
Yes.
batteries just
So
go off.
Rochelle,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, so talking about this entire scenario, we would also like to know from you what has been the readers' responses so far, to this
Yeah, you won't
poetry
believe it,
book.
Ekta. That, see, the last two books of mine, they had good responses, and I was like, okay, this is what happens. But this book has been overwhelming in its response, and I have been pretty warmed and charmed. Okay, to be very honest and blatant, I'm not going to be coy about it and shy about it. I'm just saying it really blew me because I'm like from anywhere and everywhere. New readers, my peers, old readers are coming and saying good things and lot of things. Of course, there are some small little critic also, like somebody saying you did too much of story, you forgot the rhythm here. But I love all that feedback. And like somebody just today told me, a friend who's launching the book in Delhi, he said you should have put the second section first so that it's a little easier. This first section is very heavy in imagery. So people are telling me, but there's such a warm response that I'm really surprised from anywhere and everywhere. And I'm like, wow, this is a poet's dream. And how come it's happening? Maybe there's a tipping point even for being a poet or an artist. Like after a while, people are just so fed up of you, they really read your work.
That is such a candid answer.
They are like, ये तो यहीं पे है, फिर से लिखेगी तो चल पढ़ ही लेते हैं. Like,
पढ़ ही लेते हैं. And that speaks about the resilience of
No,
our
I
artist
think,
also, isn't it? I
yeah.
mean, we are also, हम भी तो DT है ना,
yes.
हम भी सुना के ही रहेंगे.
बिल्कुल. और हम कहाँ कहाँ खत्म होंगे, because I think that no rejection, no setback ever. Like there was a time when I used to be depressed for a day or an hour, but now I just blink it off, यार. Next blink में I'm doing my work. So हम भी बहुत, resilience is the word. Like,
Yes.
because I think you fall in love completely with your art form, then it doesn't matter. Nothing matters actually. No rejection, no failure matters. You just want to do it for the love of it.
For the love of it, and and there's a journey also, I guess, because initially when I started learning Kathak and everything, I understood all of these things, but I never felt them probably,
Right.
right? But now I'm on the other end of the spectrum. I actually have started using the exact same words with my students as well.
Mhm.
Like, you need to be passionate, and such a cliche thing to say also, but it's very important, right?
Yes,
You need
yes,
to love that.
yes, yes. And I think Neeraj, I know what you're saying. There was a time when I used to read Biscuity Love everywhere. Okay, it was this poem that had. You can hear me, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
there was this poem that was such a romantic poem, and of considering the lover as a biscuit, like you want to bite someone, ऐसे bite करने का मन करता है. So that was this small town love called Biscuity Love. So I used to read it everywhere. And when I started reading it after many years, it was a different poem, although it was the same poem. Because
Wow.
then I started speaking it from my toes up. First I was only speaking it from maybe from here, or then from here, or then from here, or then from memory. And then it was like it was breathing as another poem. And I could feel that. And someone said, did you do anything to this poem? Did you edit it? I said, not a word. It's already published. It was a different poem. So
Wow. And I think that is what it takes to become from great to greatest. And I think that's the journey that we all kind of go ahead and take. So amazing, Rochelle. Would you like to read another poetry for us? We are actually looking forward to hear from you.
should I do anthems, or should I do solitary?
Yeah, but Rochelle, your voice is again very meek. I mean, coming from the background.
I will just charge this. I think something is going wrong with this one. You cannot hear me even if I'm just loud, right? This loud also doesn't work. This loud is also
This is better. This is better.
because I technology, technology is not trustful.
Uh, despite all the glitch, sorry, despite all the glitches, I mean, there was the power cut at my end, and there's a power connection now. You are facing these problems, but not
Yeah.
for a single moment I feel that there is not that connection. Then there is this discontinuity. I don't feel that it's just uh, I don't know how to put it. And if I may request, maybe envy is something I
Oh,
thought that you might want to read.
I'm so glad. Okay, just give me this little time to search for it because yeah. And let me tell you a little bit about envy. So I think the biggest part about envy is the fact that when we lose poets, so of course we lose them, we miss them, and then we read them and we share their works. But I also thought, in a very frivolous way, कि अरे now they don't have to edit their work, na. But that's the only envy I'm talking about. Okay. Okay. Envy. When they die, they get precious. Aga Shahid Ali, Margaret Mascarenhas. Because their sentences now have full stops. Their muses have flown or gone with them to Kashmiri American poet graves or Venezuelan Goan ones. Now their words have the weight of water and earth, sprinkled with burial tears. These fireflies glow without extinguishing in the dark, permanent stars, roses, thorns. Now nothing can be edited. Everything transient, temporary are the feelings of ever meeting them. Now they are infused. Just I lost it. Ha. Now they are infused in the shape of clouds, permanent bookmarks, written in rock, smelted engravings in caves. Now they fit into a frame in the relationship of knowing a person by their biography on Wikipedia, where it won't need updating every single day. Their pictures will be limited. You can only go into the unknown past. Now they have an original, unabridged word count. You can spell their names backward and still reach their graves. You don't have to say safe flights, safe journeys. They are already home. They are permanently watching you to see if you can overdo their novels, their magnificent ghazals. Can you startle their unblinking torchlit eyes as they keep watching you? Souls of tube lights, souls of lampposts, souls of engines, of outstation trains that glide smooth. They have a permanent question. You have a temporary anthology. Answers of story collections, book launches going nowhere, festivals. They went into permanent print. You are second and third reruns, reprints. You are still being edited, work in progress, hopelessly abandoned, while they have a nice granite bedstead.
So lovely it is.
Oh my God.
But Neeraj,
Thank you so much for
Oh my
why did
God.
you, engage us with this poem? I want to know why, like how.
Because a lot of my questions also were related to because you're a poet and you are
Mm-hmm.
a work in progress
Mm-hmm.
constantly, but isn't it a relief that now you have a tombstone and like
Yeah,
it's done.
yeah,
You want to edit me, you edit me. You want to read the abridged version or the unabridged version, because it's the process of creating also, isn't it? Because we
beautiful.
create, we put
Yes,
it out there, then we create, and then we put it out there, and it's like continuous work. So that is
yes.
what resonated with me a lot, and that's why I think, and I do feel envious. So
Because I feel when an artist finally ends their life, they become immortal, yeah. They become immortal. We are so
absolutely, because
mortal
even
otherwise,
this,
yeah.
right, because the smallest of the compositions, right,
Mhm.
smallest of the tihais or the small ghazals, right, it immediately assumes a larger than life proportions when the artist is gone. The envies that I also feel that, when वो जब
Huh,
थे, है
huh,
ना, तब
huh.
हमने क्यों नहीं वाह वाह की?
Yes,
So, no, I read it from
yes.
that perspective also.
Yes, yes, and that is also true. In fact, I said it somewhere, while I was speaking to my friend Ramesh at an online launch, that I think a poet is more loved when they are dead. Yeah,
Totally.
because
and
it
and
almost seems
Rochelle, while
like
I was
that the whole human avatar is whatever it is, but when you're gone, that space that you occupy is so large.
so true. And while I was reading this poem, the first thing that came to my mind was Vincent van Gogh. I don't know why.
Hmm,
I read to it.
hmm.
Not audible.
You're just a little. There's a little buffering, little buffering. Yeah.
There's a slight lag actually, Ekta.
Everything that could go wrong today
Is going
has
wrong.
already happened. And I am, I don't know why this is happening.
Oh, we are now just
Okay,
only
but I'm
staring at
not
each
able
other.
to hear Rochelle. Yeah, I can't
I'm
hear
saying,
Rochelle.
yeah, I'm saying they're
Could you
still
hear
there
her?
with as much resilience as art always has against the world. It
Oh
never
my,
stops. It never ceases.
absolutely, absolutely. It never ceases.
Yeah.
All right, Rochelle, it was such wonderful talking to you, and I think we can go on and on. Never realized, an hour has just passed by, and
Oh
it was such an interesting
wow. Oh my
discussion. A
God.
few
Yeah. I
things,
mean, I didn't realize an
few-
hour.
you know, few, yeah,
Yeah.
we have so many more things to ask you, I'm sure,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we would definitely want to have a face to face discussion with you very
Absolutely.
soon, with avoiding all these glitches.
Absolutely would love to. Neeraj and
Avoiding all
Ekta,
these
what lovely
glitches.
questions. But it was such fun, such fun. And definitely we should meet. We are Mumbaikas. If we can't meet in person, that's not fair.
Very soon, once
Yeah.
you are done with your entire trip, you have
Yes.
so much to go, and there are so many people who are waiting to hear from you.
Yeah.
And I personally want to tell everyone that you have to pick up this book and read it. The link is in bio. Go ahead, buy the book, read it,
Mhm.
and you can always come back and ask us some questions. We would love to forward them to Rochelle, and Rochelle would be
Definitely.
very happy to answer
Definitely.
them for
I would
you.
love to answer,
And
and I
we
also
would
want to
love to.
congratulate the two winners, right? There were two winners. Yes.
Yes, of the
Yes,
giveaway.
yes,
Yeah, yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And also, I have my signed copy, so I'm making everybody
Oh,
envy.
absolutely. See, now you found a new way out.
I also have,
But
so
wow,
Oh
I'm
my
Rochelle,
not bad.
God.
Precious copy
Thank
because you
you.
have,
Thank
so
you.
lovingly sent it also. It
Yeah.
has been a
yes.
privilege, I should say. It has been a privilege to talk to you. I
I'm
am
so
enjoying
glad.
my.
I'm so glad because I'll tell you something. I believe, and the last thing I'll leave you, not with a nugget or a gem, but yeah, this is my belief that poetry is like cannabis, okay? You must, if you're making it, you have to inhale it first.
Inhale it and then be high on it.
Absolutely. So all the personal connect that I make with people, with other fellow journeyers, as I call all of you, is the same thing. Like I mean, I'm inhaling my poetry. That's why.
Wow.
And so much positivity that that this entire talk infused. I think it gave so many positive vibes to everybody who was listening to us, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to see it after this. But
I'm
yeah,
so
and
glad. Yeah.
thank you so much. Anurag is also saying thank you for the amazing discussion. Thank you, Anurag, for joining us. Thank you everybody who joined us. And I also want to give a shout out to Title Access. So they also kind of joined us in the beginning. So I'm very excited about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time. Hopefully, we meet in person very soon. Bye. Bye. Thank you for your time. Bye.
Thank you, Rochelle.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.